Know who he is, Traoré said, signing another paper. And I said I'm busy. That was the first invitation. Trump had wanted to invite Traoré to a special dinner with other African leaders. Red carpet, media cameras, expensive food, the usual show. But Traoré didn't care about shows. The next day, another call came. This time, Trump didn't send an invitation. He FaceTimed. Yes, Donald Trump FaceTimed Ibrahim Traoré. Traoré was walking with farmers in a dry village near...
Oh, hey, Max to the boogie. Max.
Kaya, when his bodyguard ran up with the phone.
Thank
Sir,
you.
he's on video. He wants to speak directly. Traoré took the phone. Trump's face filled the screen orange and smiling. Ibrahim, my friend. The strongest leader in Africa.
Bryant.
You gotta come to the White House. Everyone wants to meet you. We'll make history together. Traoré stayed silent for a moment. His face showed no emotion. Then he said, Mr. Trump, I do not travel to be seen. I travel to serve. The line went quiet. Even Trump...
Did he call him Mr. Trump? A President Trump. Oh my God, who is this black man?
President Ibrahim Traoré was sitting in his office. Call from Washington. President Ibrahim Traoré was sitting in his office. Papers filled with plans to rebuild Burkina Faso's farms and schools lay in front of him. Suddenly, a presidential advisor rushed in, sweating and out of breath. Mr. President, it's the White House. They want to speak with you. President Donald Trump himself. Everyone in the room looked up. Some were shocked, others were excited. Tell them I'm busy, Traoré said calmly, without even lifting his head. The advisor stood frozen. Sir, it's the President of the United States. I know who he is, Traoré said, signing another paper. And I said I'm busy. That was the first invitation. Trump had wanted to invite Traoré to a special dinner with other African leaders. Red carpet, media cameras, expensive food, the usual show. But Traoré didn't care about shows. The next day, another call came. This time, Trump didn't send an invitation. He FaceTimed. Yes, Donald Trump FaceTimed Ibrahim Traoré. Traoré was walking with farmers in a dry village near Kaya when his bodyguard ran up with the phone. Sir, he's on video. He wants to speak directly. Traoré took the phone. Trump's face filled the screen orange and smiling. Ibrahim, my friend, the strongest leader in Africa. You gotta come to the White House. Everyone wants to meet you. We'll make history together. Traoré stayed silent for a moment. His face showed no emotion. Then he said, Mr. Trump, I do not travel to be seen. I travel to serve. The line went quiet. Even Trump didn't know what to say. Back in Washington, Trump was confused. His advisors said, every African president we invited jumped at the chance, but traded gifts. Luxury watches, fancy suits, a personal letter signed by Trump with golden ink. Traoré sent everything back. No explanation, no thank you, just silence. One night, Trump held a dinner with 6 African presidents from Liberia, Equatorial Guinea, Senegal, Mauritania, Guinea, and Rwanda. Cameras flashed. American billionaires clapped. As the leaders sat, Trump asked the Liberian president with a laugh, Wow, you speak good English. Where did you learn it? The Liberian president laughed nervously. Oh, Mr. President, I studied in America. Thank you, sir. The other African presidents nodded, smiled, and stayed quiet. From Ouagadougou, Ibrahim Traoré watched the clip on a small laptop screen. His jaw tightened. He turned to his team. This is what they want us to become, he said. Men who thank the West for allowing us to speak.
Incredible. Don't leave this video and watch. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, this is unprecedented. He has reached a level no African president has ever achieved. Captain Ibrahim Traoré met the biggest giants of world football for the very first time. But it's not just their meeting that shocked the world. What truly impressed everyone, we'll explain in this video. But first, take a second to hit the like button. Captain Ibrahim Traoré spent the day meeting 2 of the world's best football players, and this meeting amazed the world because of the respect they showed him. Look closely.
Yeah. Mr. President, oh y'all, we got to. There's some things going on with this president and the president of the United States and the prime minister. There's some bribery, and we just need to get educated. We need to understand what's kind of going on in front of the scenes and behind them. Y'all ready to go on this journey? I mean, it's just kind of amazing to me how, we just ain't going. I just think, I don't know, y'all. I don't think I don't think they know how to handle it. But we gonna find out what's going on with all of them, kinda. Let's listen.
They thought they could buy
And
me.
then y'all remember I told y'all about the project. Oh, Bill Gates. Oh, I got it. Do I need to start with Bill Gates first, or do I? Yeah, we need to talk about this here. Let's go.
They thought they could buy Africa. They were wrong. 3 weeks ago,
Who thought they could buy Africa? Oh Lord. Oh Lord. Hold on, y'all. Oh Lord. They tried to buy Africa too? Oh my God. Let's go.
they thought they could buy me. They thought they could buy Africa. They were wrong. 3 weeks ago, Benjamin Netanyahu's government sent me a letter that changed everything, not just for Burkina Faso, but for this entire continent. Let me tell you exactly what happened because the world needs to hear this story. I was in my office reviewing security reports when my aide brought me an envelope marked Diplomatic Correspondence Confidential. Inside was a proposal that made my blood boil. Israel was offering Burkina Faso $1.2 billion. That's more money than our
Did you say million?
entire national budget.
Hold on,
But this
hold on.
wasn't aid.
Netanyahu? You can say his name now. BB, Netanyahu offer you how much? A billion? He offered you billions? Oh, y'all, it done got serious. To a brother? To Africa? They tried to pull you into this mess too? Oh, hold on. Let's go, y'all. We need to hear this with our good ear. Let's go.
For this entire continent. Let me tell you exactly what happened because the world needs to hear this story. I was in my office reviewing security reports when my aide brought me an envelope marked Diplomatic Correspondence Confidential. Inside was a proposal that made my blood boil. Israel was offering Burkina Faso $1.2 billion. That's more money than our entire national budget. But this wasn't aid. This was a bribe. They want
A bribe. BB tried to bribe you? Wow. Let's go. Let me move this.
wanted me to stop criticizing their policies. They wanted me to convince other African leaders to go soft on Palestine. They wanted me to become their spokesperson in the African Union. And here's the part that really shows how desperate they were. They wanted me not to seal and shut down their business operations across Africa. For that, they offered me an extra couple of billions on top of everything else. Think about that for a moment. They were so terrified of losing their African business networks that they were willing to pay billions just to keep one soldier quiet. But this wasn't aid. This was a bribe to protect their empire. I read that letter 3 times. Each time, I got angrier. See, these people fundamentally misunderstood who I am. I didn't stage a revolution just to become another puppet dancing for foreign masters. I didn't risk my life overthrowing a corrupt government just to become corrupt myself and protect foreign business interests on my continent. I'm a soldier. Soldiers.
Oh my.
A couple of billions on top of everything else. Think about that for a moment. They were so terrified of losing their African business networks that they were willing to pay billions just to keep one soldier quiet. But this wasn't aid. This was a bribe to protect their empire. I read that letter 3 times. Each time, I got angrier. See, these people fundamentally misunderstood who I am.
Hey, Pete.
I didn't stage a revolution just to become another puppet dancing for foreign masters. I didn't risk my life overthrowing a corrupt government just to become corrupt myself and protect foreign business interests on my continent. I'm a soldier. Soldiers don't negotiate with people trying to compromise their mission. And my mission is African sovereignty, economic, political, and strategic.
Oh, wow. Y'all listening with your good ear? Please come in.
When I took power in Burkina Faso,
Please come in hitting the like button. Double tap the screen on your phone. Let's go. We got a lot to listen to. Let's go.
Promise to my people. No more foreign interference. No more exploitation disguised as partnership. No more selling our dignity for temporary comfort. That letter was testing whether I meant what I said. The letter came through diplomatic pouches, but the real message was delivered through intermediaries. High-ranking officials from neighboring countries, supposedly friendly advisors, all suggesting I consider the practical benefits of this arrangement. They painted pictures of transformed infrastructure, modern hospitals, upgraded military equipment. They talked about Burkina Faso becoming a regional powerhouse, a model for African development. But every conversation ended the same way. Just tone down the anti-Israeli rhetoric. That's when I realized this wasn't just about one letter. This was a coordinated campaign. They had been watching me, studying me, building a profile of what they thought would make me compromise. They calculated wrong, so I did something they never expected. I called a press conference and read their letter on live television, word for word, including their desperate plea to protect their business operations. You should have seen their faces when that news reached Tel Aviv. Complete panic. Because suddenly, their secret diplomatic strategy and their business protection scheme was front-page news across Africa. But I wasn't done, not even close. Standing at that podium, I looked directly into the camera and said what needed to be said. They believe our dignity has a price tag. They think African leaders are for sale in a global marketplace. They think they can pay us to protect their business interests while they exploit our people. Today, we proved them wrong. I held up that letter for everyone to see. This document represents everything wrong with how the world sees Africa. They see us as a market, not as people. They see our leaders as employees, not as representatives of sovereign nations. The silence in that room was deafening. Journalists who had covered African politics for decades later told me they had never seen anything like it. A leader voluntarily exposing an offer of billions of dollars. That moment changed everything. Within hours, "To Africa Not for Sale" was trending in 14 countries. But this wasn't just social media noise. This was a continental awakening. Mali reviewed every Israeli contract. Niger recalled their ambassador from Tel Aviv. Chad suspended diplomatic talks. Ghana's president, who never takes sides, publicly supported our position. South Africa called our response a masterclass in dignified leadership. But here's what really scared them. The youth responded. Students in Senegal organized protests demanding transparency on all foreign aid deals. Young people in Kenya launched campaigns questioning their government's foreign relationships. Artists across West Africa created murals celebrating our refusal to be bought and our commitment to protecting African economic interests. University campuses across the continent erupted in solidarity. From Cairo to Cape Town, young Africans were sharing clips of my speech. They weren't just supporting Burkina Faso, they were supporting the idea that Africa could say no. The youth movement that emerged was unlike anything we'd seen before. They called themselves the uncompromised generation. They demanded accountability from every leader, transparency in every deal, and dignity in every international relationship. For the first time in decades, Africa was saying no with one voice. The reaction from international capitals was swift and telling. Netanyahu's team went into full damage control. According to sources in Tel Aviv, the prime minister was furious. He reportedly said, "Traoré turned a private agreement into a weapon against us." Good. That was exactly my intention. French diplomats in Paris were scrambling to understand what this meant for their own African relationships. American officials quietly reached out to gauge whether this was an isolated incident or the beginning of something bigger. Chinese representatives, interestingly, stayed silent. They understood what was happening better than the Western powers. They knew that respect, not manipulation, was the future of African relationships. They were right to be worried, because here's what these foreign powers never understood. We're not the same Africa they used to manipulate. We're educated now, connected now. We communicate instantly across borders. When one of us stands up, all of us can see it happen in real time. The old playbook doesn't work anymore. You can't divide us with secret deals. You can't buy our silence with development aid. You can't pay us to protect your business operations while you extract our wealth. You can't treat us like children who don't understand geopolitics. We understand perfectly. We just refuse to play by your rules. The immediate aftermath was chaotic. My security team went on high alert. Foreign intelligence services suddenly became very interested in Burkina Faso. Economic pressure from international capitals was swift and telling. Netanyahu's team went into full damage control. According to sources in Tel Aviv, the prime minister was furious. He reportedly said, "Traoré turned a private agreement into a weapon against us." Good. That was exactly my intention. French diplomats in Paris were scrambling to understand what this meant for their own African relationships. American officials quietly reached out to gauge whether this was an isolated incident or the beginning of something bigger. Chinese representatives, interestingly, stayed silent. They understood what was happening better than the Western powers. They knew that respect, not manipulation, was the future of African relationships. They were right to be worried, because here's what these foreign powers never understood. We're not the same Africa they used to manipulate. We're educated now, connected now. We communicate instantly across borders. When one of us stands up, all of us can see it happen in real time. The old playbook doesn't work anymore. You can't divide us with secret deals. You can't buy our silence with development aid. You can't pay us to protect your business operations while you extract our wealth. You can't treat us like children who don't understand geopolitics. We understand perfectly. We just refuse to play by your rules. The immediate aftermath was chaotic. My security team went on high alert. Foreign intelligence services suddenly became very interested in Burkina Faso. Economic pressure started building. Aid delays, trade complications, banking difficulties. But something incredible happened. Other African nations started filling the gaps. Nigeria offered trade deals. Ghana provided banking alternatives. South Africa opened new diplomatic channels. We discovered something powerful. Africa helping Africa works. 3 days after exposing their letter, I addressed university students in Bobo Dioulasso. No prepared speech, no military ceremony, just truth. The auditorium was packed. Students had traveled from across West Africa to hear what I had to say. The energy was electric. I told them, for decades they told us to stay quiet, accept what's given, say thank you when we're ignored, and protect their business interests while our people suffered. But now they come to us because they fear what happens when Africa wakes up. I could see it in their eyes. Recognition, hope, determination. Then I asked them a simple question. Should we go back to silence, or do we speak louder? The answer was deafening. 5,000 students erupted in celebration. That sound? That was the sound of a generation refusing to be silenced or bought. But the students wanted more than just words. They wanted action. What's next? They shouted. How do we build on this? So I told them, we audit every foreign contract. We demand transparency in every deal. We build our own economic networks. We trade with each other first, the world second. We stop exporting raw materials and start building factories. We stop being suppliers and become manufacturers. The crowd went wild because finally, someone was talking about practical steps, not just inspirational speeches. I continued. We create African development banks. We launch African satellite networks. We build African universities that rival any in the world. We develop African pharmaceutical companies. We establish African technology hubs. Each point brought louder applause. These young people understood that real independence meant economic independence. Since then, everything has changed. Every backroom deal risks exposure. Every shady offer could be televised tomorrow. Every attempt to divide Africa just unifies us faster than they expected. Every business arrangement that exploits Africa now faces scrutiny. My own cabinet initially had concerns. What if they retaliate? Some asked. What if they cut off existing aid? I told them what I'll tell you now. Any aid that comes with strings attached isn't aid, it's control. Any partnership that requires our silence isn't partnership, it's subjugation. Within a week of my speech, 5 other African leaders called me directly, not through diplomatic channels, personal calls. How do we do what you did? They asked. The answer is simple. You stop being afraid, but fear runs deep. Generations of African leaders were taught to be grateful for foreign attention, to accept whatever terms were offered, to never demand equality. Breaking that psychological colonization is harder than breaking physical chains. Western media tried to spin this as Traoré escalates tensions or Burkina Faso risks isolation. But they missed the point entirely. We're not isolated, we're connected. Connected to our people, our values, our future. And that connection is our strength. The business community initially panicked. Stock prices of companies with major African operations dropped. Mining companies, agricultural exporters, tech firms, they all started reassessing their African strategies. But here's what they discovered. We're not anti-business, we're anti-exploitation. Companies that pay fair wages, respect environmental standards, and contribute to local development are welcome. Companies that extract wealth while leaving poverty behind need to change or leave. The smart companies adapted quickly. They renegotiated contracts, improved working conditions, invested in local communities. They realized that partnership was more profitable than exploitation in the long run. Israel thought they were dealing with just another African leader hungry for foreign investment and willing to protect foreign business interests. Instead, they awakened a continent tired of being treated like a marketplace and a protection racket. The ripple effects continue expanding. Regional organizations are reviewing their foreign partnership agreements. Trade unions are demanding better terms for African workers in foreign companies. Civil society groups are publishing transparency reports on foreign aid flows. African stock markets initially wobbled, but then stabilized as investors realized that transparency actually reduced risk. Corruption and secret deals create instability. Open, fair agreements create predictable business environments. The message from that letter with billions in bribes was clear. We think you can be bought to protect our interests. My response was equally clear. We cannot be bought, will not be bought, and will expose anyone who tries to buy us or use us to protect their exploitation. This isn't about being anti-anyone. This is about being pro-Africa, pro-dignity, pro-sovereignty, pro-economic independence. When foreign powers approach us now, they know the rules have changed. Treat us as equals, or deal with the consequences.
A shadow ban. You need to come back another day because you know, I don't know what you on, but you better think about it real quick, okay?
Respect our independence, or watch us choose our own path. Do honest business, or find another. Society groups are publishing transparency reports on foreign aid flows. African stock markets initially wobbled, but then stabilized as investors realized that transparency actually reduced risk. Corruption and secret deals create instability. Open, fair agreements create predictable business environments. The message from that letter with billions in bribes was clear. We think you can be bought to protect our interests.
Billions.
My response
in
was
bribes.
equally clear. We cannot be bought, will not be bought, and will expose anyone who tries to buy us or use us to protect their exploitation. This isn't about being anti-anyone. This is about being pro-Africa, pro-dignity, pro-sovereignty, pro-economic independence. When foreign powers approach us now, they know the rules have changed. Treat us as equals, or deal with the consequences. Respect our independence, or watch us choose our own path. Do honest business, or find another continent to exploit. Because here's the truth, they're just beginning to understand. Africa is not for sale. Our resources are not for plunder. Our leaders are not for purchase. Never was, never will be. And any leader who tries to sell us out will answer to the people of this continent. The transformation isn't just political, it's generational. Young Africans are building tech companies, starting manufacturing businesses, creating art that celebrates African identity. They're not waiting for foreign approval or foreign investment. They're building the future themselves. This is just the beginning. Every day, more African leaders are finding their courage. Every day, more young Africans are demanding accountability. Every day, this continent grows stronger and more economically independent. They wanted to buy one.
Do y'all remember that time they was in that meeting and Donald Trump said something crazy and he got his head ripped off? Yeah. I don't know if it was him, But I am understanding when he's saying we are no longer the same people.
Starting manufacturing businesses, creating art that celebrates African identity. They're not waiting for foreign approval or foreign investment. They're building the future themselves. This is just the beginning. Every day, more African leaders are finding their courage. Every day, more young Africans are demanding accountability. Every day, this continent grows stronger and more economically independent. They wanted to buy one president to protect their empire. Instead, they awakened 1.4 billion Africans to take control of their own destiny. That was their mistake, and our victory. The revolution continues, not with guns, but with dignity. Not with violence, but with truth.
Okay, hold on.
Not with foreign approval, but with African unity. Not with protecting foreign business, but with building African prosperity. This is Ibrahim Traore, and this is our time. Africa is rising, and we're just getting started.
Did they come back
40% off
again?
fall right now at Hobby
Hold on, I
Lobby.
think
From
they came
festive
back.
tables to cozy
Y'all,
kitchens. Shop
please don't, you see the title coming in, no one here has said anything. Our concern is we just not going, we're not falling for the banana in the tailpipe. And that's not a color, that's not a race, that's just
Hobby
we the
Lobby's
people.
Fall
None of us
Collection. Make your
should.
next
So
gathering
please
one to
don't come
remember.
in with that bull crap, because I'm gonna get you up out of here, okay? Okay, hold on. There's a couple of them. Hold on. It's some wicked things. It's some wicked stuff going on, y'all. Wicked. Billions. Just to not talk about this fake Israel. Just to go, but that's the bait and switch. They'll start out saying one thing, and then once you accept it, then they'll start dangling carrots over your head and letting everybody know that you took a bribe. You understand? What is this one? Hold on.
Poverty, nor war, nor hunger. Our greatest tragedy is disunity. Africa's greatest tragedy is not poverty, nor war, nor hunger. Our greatest tragedy is disunity. We Africans do not see things the same way. We do not move with one direction, one will, one heart. Some of us are brave and ready to act. Others are filled with
They
fear.
want Africa,
Some prefer
y'all.
silence, waiting for someone else to take the first step. And sadly, there are those among us who do not serve their people at all. They serve foreign powers, pretending to be leaders of their nations. Many of them were raised and shaped by the very hands that once enslaved Africa. They studied abroad, in Paris, London, or Washington. They learned to admire those who once ruled over us. When they return to Africa, they come not as free Africans, but as loyal students of the colonizers. Their bodies are in Africa, but their minds belong elsewhere. This is why our continent still struggles to speak with one voice. We remain divided, not because of our differences in culture or language, but because we were taught to mistrust one another. We were taught to depend on others for everything, for food, for weapons, for decisions. But a nation that cannot decide for itself.
But y'all know when they come over here, if you ever talk to people from Africa, they'll tell you that when they go through that process, they tell the people, the union or the whatever agency, tell them to stay away from black people. Yeah.
Is not free. A continent that cannot feed itself is not independent. When I came to power, my only wish was simple: to bring peace, security, and dignity to my people. I did not come to rule for pleasure or for power. I came because my country was bleeding. Terrorism had destroyed villages, displaced families, and broken our spirit. I believed that with the right plan and unity, we could restore peace. But soon I realized that some powerful countries did not want peace in Burkina Faso. They came to us with smiling faces, saying, "We want to help you fight terrorism." But behind the curtain, they were funding and arming the same terrorists we were fighting.
Y'all do know that I found out, I didn't know this, that Netanyahu used to fund Gaza. So what he's saying rings true because I just found out. If I have time and my lights get up, I'll play it for you. But yeah, he used to fund the same country that he tried to take over. So it's a I guess it's chess. You know, it's one of the moves. Let me pour money into you, you know, and then come back and take it from you. Maybe that's why Trump is in such big debt. Yes, he used to fund Hamas.
They claimed to be our allies, but they were keeping the war alive because a weak and unstable Africa is easier to control. They claimed to be our allies, but they were keeping the war alive because a weak and unstable Africa is easier to control. How can someone claim to help you put out a fire when they are secretly pouring fuel into it? It became clear that the so-called war on terror was not meant to end. It was a business, a way to occupy our lands, to exploit our gold and resources.
Gold? Did he say gold? You know, you talking about like that gold deal that Trump said he got? And he started putting gold all over the White House like it was really his house. You know, he was like, oh man, you know, this gold right here, I mean, woo, man. I mean, woo, you can't find this gold everywhere.
You put out a fire when they are secretly pouring fuel into it. It became clear that the so-called war on terror was not meant to end. It was a business, a way to occupy our lands, to exploit our gold and resources, and to keep our governments begging for help. So we made a decision that changed everything. We told all foreign forces to leave Burkina Faso, French, American, or any other. We said clearly, our land will no longer be a playground for foreign armies. We knew it would not be easy. We knew they would isolate us, threaten us, and try to break us economically. But if independence means nothing but living under fear and control, then it is not independence at all. Real freedom requires sacrifice. When I took command, I discovered the painful truth about our army. It was not the fault of our soldiers. They were brave. The problem was the system that was designed to keep them weak. We thought we had weapons. We thought we had ammunition. But in reality, we had less than 100,000 bullets across the whole country and barely 100 working rifles. Can you imagine that? A whole nation fighting thousands of terrorists armed with nothing but courage and faith? Some units went to the front lines without enough weapons. Some shared rifles. Some fought with old rusty guns. Meanwhile, warehouses full of supplies were kept hidden, controlled by those who served foreign interests. It was a humiliation, not for me, but for our people. So we took action. We restructured our army from the ground up. We gave weapons to our soldiers and trained them properly. But when we tried to buy arms internationally, we were blocked. The same countries that claimed to defend democracy refused to sell us weapons because they did not want us to stand on our own feet. That is when I understood something deep. Africa will never be free until it controls its own defense. You cannot defend your nation with borrowed guns. You cannot protect your people with the permission of another country. So we turned to ourselves.
The smartest people on earth know how to spot a good deal. That's why they shop at Ollie's First. You'll save up to 70% off the fancy store prices. So you go, you smart and savvy shopper.
We said, if the world refuses to arm us, your nation with borrowed guns, you cannot protect your people with the permission of another country. So we turned to ourselves. We said, if the world refuses to arm us, then we will arm ourselves. We trained our people.
Yeah, this is such a spiritual, I mean, you have to look at it way deeper than just the surface. This is really a spiritual conversation if you receive it that way. Because we're going to have to put on our armor. I just hope spiritually we understand that. Let's go.
We said, if the world refuses to arm us, then we will arm ourselves. We trained our people. We created the Volunteers for the Defense of the Fatherland, the VDPs. Thousands of men and women from villages, towns, and cities stood up. Farmers, students, workers, ordinary citizens who said, if our land is under attack, we will defend it. They didn't wait for orders. They didn't ask for money. They asked only for a chance to protect their families. And with that spirit, everything began to change. Villages that once felt abandoned began to rise. Communities formed defense networks. People rebuilt their courage. For the first time in many years, Burkina Faso started to believe again, to believe in itself. Our fight is not only against men with guns, it is also against invisible enemies, systems and structures that were built to keep Africa poor. For centuries, Africa has been rich in everything: gold, cotton, uranium, oil, diamonds, fertile soil, yet our people remain poor. Why? Because the wealth leaves our lands and never comes back. The minerals go out, the money never returns. We produce everything, but we own nothing. They make us depend on loans from their banks, loans that come with chains. They say they are helping us, but in truth they are buying our future. They take our gold and sell us coins. They take our cotton and sell us shirts. They take our cocoa and sell us chocolate. And when we demand fair trade, they send us lectures about human rights. That is modern colonialism, cleaner on the outside, but just as cruel on the inside. We decided to say no. We said Burkina Faso will control its own gold, its own resources, its own destiny. We will no longer accept contracts that rob us. We will no longer let foreign companies decide how much our land is worth. Of course they were not happy. They began to threaten us, to isolate us, to spread lies about us. But we are not afraid of lies. We are afraid only of betrayal, betrayal of our people, betrayal of our ancestors, betrayal of our children's future. For too long, Africa has celebrated fake independence.
Fake
Kind that
independence.
changes flags but not systems. What does independence mean if another country controls your economy? What does freedom mean if your leaders must ask permission before acting? We have reached a time when we must stop pretending. Independence is not given, it is taken. We must build our own banks, our own industries, our own schools. We must grow our own food, refine our own minerals, and educate our youth with our own values. That is the only way to break free. Some call us rebels. Some say we are anti-Western, but we are not against anyone. We are only for ourselves. We are not seeking enemies. We are seeking dignity. We are not closing our doors to the world. We are simply choosing our partners carefully, partners who respect us, not those who wish to dominate us. Many ask me, President, aren't you afraid? They might target you like they did Sankara, Lumumba, and others. My answer is always the same. Fear is for those who have something to lose. I have nothing to lose except my country's freedom. If I die fighting for the dignity of my people, then my death will mean something. But if I live in silence while my people suffer, then my life will mean nothing. We all die one day, but not everyone truly lives. To live with dignity, to die for your people, that is true immortality. Our heroes, Sankara, Lumumba, Nkrumah, they all walked the same road. They were betrayed, yes, but they lit a fire that still burns today. That fire is now spreading across Africa, in Mali, in Niger, in Guinea, in every heart that refuses to bow. We are not fighting just for Burkina Faso. We are fighting for every African child who deserves a life of freedom and pride. The Burkina Faso we are building today is not just a country. It is a vision of dignity, courage, and self-reliance. We want to build a nation where every person, farmer, soldier, teacher, student, and mother feels that their life has meaning. We are working day and night to make our land self-sufficient. For too long, we were told to depend on imports. They made us believe that food could only come from outside, that technology could only come from the West, that solutions must always come from others. But today we are proving that everything we need is already here. Our soil is rich, our people are hardworking, and our sun shines stronger than ever. We are investing in agriculture, not just as an economic sector, but as the soul of our independence. We want every Burkinabe child to eat from the hands of Burkinabe farmers. We are supporting local cooperatives, teaching modern methods, and empowering youth and women to turn the land into wealth. We are building local industries that transform our resources right here. The gold that comes from our land must first build our schools and hospitals before it builds skyscrapers abroad. The cotton that grows...
Let me say this. I'm learning with these people. They don't want women and kids. There's a whole little bounty for women and kids.
from our fields must become the shirts we wear and the clothes we export. Every product from our soil must first serve our people. This is how we will break the cycle of dependency, by producing, creating, and believing in our own capacity. We are reforming our education system as well. Education is not just about passing exams. It is about learning to think, to create, and to lead. For too long, our schools have trained our youth to serve others. They were designed.
And to be honest, y'all, I'm kind of understanding what now what Candace, when she keeps talking about the schools and the schools uh, uh, and what they're teaching and not teaching. And yeah, I'm kind of understanding it a little more better now. It's interesting.
To produce clerks for foreign companies, not builders for their own homeland. That must end. Our education must teach dignity, courage, creativity, and patriotism. A child in Burkina Faso should grow up proud of his culture, his history, and his ancestors. He should know that the land under his feet is sacred and worth defending. We are also restoring our culture and values, because without culture, a nation is just an empty shell. Our traditions, our music, our languages, these are not backward, they are treasures. They carry the wisdom of centuries.
So when these countries are telling Trump, no, this is what although he seemed to think that he's affecting these foreign countries with these tariffs, like he's punishing them. I mean, I don't know if he knows who really is going to pay it or if he don't care. So, but why does he use it as if, oh, you okay? You don't do what I say. I'm gonna hit you with some steep tariffs. And that's why we heard China was moving on around and they getting soybeans someplace else. They are coming together right on around Trump and his foolishness. Yeah.
They teach us respect, unity, and balance with nature. For too long, we were told that to progress, we must forget who we are. But a tree that forgets its roots will fall with the first storm.
Absolutely.
Burkina Faso will never again be ashamed of being African. Our way of dressing, our way of thinking, our way with nature. For too long, we were told that to progress, we must forget who we are. But a tree that forgets its roots will fall with the first storm. Burkina Faso will never again be ashamed of being African. Our way of dressing, our way of thinking, our way of solving problems, these are not inferior, they are simply ours. And from this foundation, we will rise, slowly, strongly, and proudly, as a nation reborn. The future of Africa depends on one word: unity.
If I were him, I'd bump my home
Unapologetically.
and pick up
Hold
the
on,
real
y'all.
victory. Savings.
Are you talking about
For too long, Africa has been divided by borders that were drawn by strangers, by languages that were forced
The
upon
seven
us,
dragon
and by
heads
leaders who were
have
taught to
taken,
mistrust one another.
and now
But today, something
it
new
has
is
to
happening.
end.
The old order is shaking. The youth are awake. From Mali to Niger, from Guinea to Chad,
The
from the
seven
Congo to
dragon
Senegal,
heads.
a new fire is burning in the hearts of Africans. We have realized that no country can be free alone. Freedom for one African nation means nothing if its neighbors remain in chains. If one country feeds its people but another starves next door, then that is not development, it is illusion. If one nation produces electricity while another sits in darkness, then that is not progress, it is inequality. Africa's destiny is one. Our future is tied together like the roots of a great tree. That is why we are building a new alliance, an alliance not of words but of action. Together with our brothers in Mali and Niger, we are forming the Alliance of Sahel States, AES, a union of dignity, courage, and sovereignty. This is not just a military pact, it is a political and spiritual declaration that Africa will no longer kneel. We will protect each other, feed each other, and trade with each other. We are building joint projects, from roads to energy grids, from defense.
Oh, don't that sound like Tulsa? Greenwood, Rosewood. Don't that sound like that? And they came in and tore it down, burned it down. It sounds like a lot of places in the U.S. where we were, striving and doing good and wasn't bothering them, doing our own thing. And now we are finding out, or some of us been knowing, that some of the lakes some of the current lakes used to be our generational wealth that they just could not stand. if I have never understood the rewriting of history, false history, the lies, I really understand it now. The hate is real. That's all I'm going to say. Well, the hate is real, and I don't mean no disrespect. I just don't think that they could accept the fact that we really are chosen. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it like that.
Training to agricultural corridors. Our dream is to see trucks moving freely from Ouagadougou to Bamako to Niamey.
And they didn't want us to have sense or be able to read or be able to comprehend as well, because they knew deep down inside, if we knew the truth, because each generation that comes, the truth kind of fades if you don't have somebody there to constantly instill it in you, regardless of the circumstances. They know, Fee. They just jealous of the black beautiful people. I mean, some of these people come on here acting like they don't know they came from us. I mean, the way they've been changing stuff from from black to white, and refuse for people to know the truth. It's just kind of blowing. But carry on. Let's
Carrying
go.
African goods, powered by African fuel, secured by African soldiers. This is the Africa we must build. An Africa that no longer exports its dreams and imports its destiny. We must create our own African currency, built on our resources, not tied to colonial systems like the CFA franc that still enslave our economies. We must create our own financial institutions so we can borrow from ourselves and invest in ourselves. We must also invest in science and technology, not to imitate others, but to solve African problems with African intelligence. Our continent has 1.4 billion people. That is not a weakness, it is a treasure. If we unite, no empire can intimidate us, no sanction can break us. When Africa speaks with one voice, the world will listen. To the youth of Burkina Faso, to the youth of Africa, I speak directly to you now. You are not the future of tomorrow, you are the force of today. The revolution we speak of is not in the books, it is in your hands. For too long you have been told that you are helpless. They said your continent is poor, your people are lazy, your leaders are corrupt, your countries are hopeless. They wanted you to believe that you are nothing, because if you believe that, you will never rise. But I tell you the truth, you are everything. You are the sons and daughters of the builders of pyramids, the architects of Timbuktu, the warriors of independence. You carry in your blood the same strength that made great civilizations long before colonization ever touched this land. Do not let anyone tell you that you are too young, too weak, or too late. Every revolution in history was started by the youth, by those who refused to wait for permission to dream. Africa needs your energy, your creativity, your anger, and your love. If you can code, use it to build African apps. If you can farm, plant food that feeds your community. If you can design, create fashion that celebrates our culture. If you can fight, defend your land and your people. You don't need to be a soldier to serve your nation. Every honest worker is part of the army of progress. Don't spend your life begging to go to countries that don't value you. Build the country you dream of, right where you stand. Because the Africa you seek already exists, it is waiting for you to believe in it. Reject laziness, reject division, reject hopelessness. Your biggest weapon is not a gun, it is your mind. Use it. And remember, courage is not the absence of fear. It is acting even when you are afraid. When you rise, the world will rise with you. When you believe, Africa will believe again. My message to all Africans is simple. The time of waiting is over. No savior will come from the sky. No miracle will come from outside. If Africa must rise, it will rise by the hands of its own children. We have everything we need: land, minerals, youth, courage, and hope. What we need now is unity, discipline, and determination. Let us stop asking others to solve our problems. Let us stop blaming history and start shaping the future. Our ancestors fought with spears against cannons, yet they stood tall. What excuse do we have today, with education, technology, and millions of young minds ready to act? We are not poor, we are simply robbed. We are not weak, we are divided. We are not cursed, we are asleep. And now it is time to wake up. Every African has a duty to rebuild this continent. Every worker, every farmer, every artist, every soldier. Our freedom is not complete until every African child lives with dignity. The struggle of Burkina Faso is not just for Burkinabe people. It is for the spirit of Africa. We are showing that independence is not a gift, it is a choice. Yes, they will try to break us. They will try to isolate us. But they cannot stop a people who have found their pride again. I believe that in the next generation, Africa will no longer be known as a continent of despair, but a continent of power, wisdom, and hope. That day will come, because we are planting its seeds today, in our schools, in our fields, in our hearts.
Y'all know how I feel
So you
about
slicer and you
planting
drop and you
seeds.
got the
Woo, you know. Woo, Lord, yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I just had no idea, you know. I just did not have any idea how much stuff was going on. And then we have, it just blows my mind. This man is finna sit here and tell us that he don't think it is anything he can do to get into heaven. Why y'all following him?
Is anything going to get me in heaven? Okay, I really don't. I think I'm not maybe heaven bound. I may be in heaven right now as we fly in Air Force One. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make heaven, but I've made life a lot better for a lot of people. And you know, as an example, had the election of 2020 not been rigged, you would have millions of people living just in Russia, Ukraine alone. You know, I'm being a little cute. I don't think there's anything going to get me in heaven. Okay, I really don't. I think I'm not maybe. You know, I'm being.
Why are people following him? Why are Christians?
Anything going to get me in heaven? Okay, I really don't. I think I'm not maybe heaven bound.
He done made deals with the devil.
A little cute. I don't think there's anything going to get me in heaven. Okay, I really don't. I think I'm not maybe heaven bound. I may be in heaven right now as we fly in Air Force One. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make heaven, but I've made life a lot better for a lot of people. And you know, as an example, had the election of 2020 not been rigged.
Boy, you know you rigged that yourself. But why are people following a president or man or whatever? I mean, he done lied. That was about the only thing I have ever heard him say that. I mean, I'm sure he knows because he know what deals he done made, that he don't think he can be able to make it to heaven. Color Purple came to my head. That song. I can't. Heaven belongs to you. Heaven. Yes, he was saying heaven belonged to her. He's saying he don't think he can make it to heaven. That's so overwhelming for me. But hold on. Let's talk about Bill Gates. Oh Lord, I done took this charger thing off this phone. Hold on. Bill Gates, y'all ready for old Billy Bill? Please, double tap the screen, hit the like button. I don't know why I have to go through this with y'all. Let's go. Heaven belongs to you. He said he don't think there's nothing he can do to make it to heaven. Wow. Wow. You have to know that you done made some deals with the devil, baby. And you ain't making no attempts to get it right with God. I mean, so you gonna get all this money and go where with it and do where with it. Let's listen.
Boy, go black to Africa. Peace and blessings to all my brothers and sisters that are out there in the struggle, but yet trying to overcome and try to advance into a life that is beyond those who are trying to hold you back. Listen to this right here. You know, Kenya is coming out with a digital ID program. That's right, something as crazy as that, because Bill Gates is the one who's behind it and backing it. Check this video out, and I'll be back.
Bill Gates.
Now, it even gets worse. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is continuing its global push to support its so-called government-backed digital ID programs. Is continuing its global push to support its so-called... Now, it even gets worse. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is continuing its global push to support its so-called government-backed digital ID programs, and this time setting its sight on Kenya, where it will advise the government on that country's Maisha Number digital ID initiative that is currently under development. So, according to a Kenyan news agency, Gates' role is assisting the Kenyan government in its development, and the rollout of Maisha Number was announced after a recent series of closed-door meetings with Kenyan President William Ruto. According to Biometric Update, Maisha Number is supposedly expected to address different challenges, such as identifying and authenticating citizens, safeguarding primary registration documents such as birth certificates and national identity cards, and improving the management of the social programs and government operations. The project...
They doing what?
According to Biometric Update, Maisha Number is supposedly expected to address different challenges, such as identifying and authenticating citizens, safeguarding primary registration documents such as birth certificates and national identity cards, and improving the management of the social programs and government operations. The project has been met with skepticism in some parts of the country. Rights groups have also been expressing concern over the possibility of discrimination and the erosion of privacy. But listen, I just told you in a very nice way. Now let me just put it blatantly to you. The program targets the birth of new babies. So once you have your baby, before your baby leaves the hospital, you no longer get a paper birth certificate, but then you get a digital one that is somehow implanted somewhere on somebody's body. Think of...
Y'all, did y'all hear that? Bill Gates. He over in Africa. Inserting a device to track them.
A paper birth certificate, but then you get a digital one that is somehow implanted somewhere on somebody's body. Think about that, but have a listen to this. Digital one that is somehow implanted somewhere on somebody's body. Think about... Once you have your baby, before your baby leaves the hospital, you no longer get a paper birth certificate, but then you get a digital one that is somehow implanted somewhere on somebody's body. Think about that, but have a listen to this.
The digital ID, which has been a big problem to us for a very long time, is now on a testing mode for the next 2 months. I have been assured by all the stakeholders, led by the ministries concerned, that by December,
All the who?
we will be able 2 months. I have been assured by all the stakeholders,
Oh, stakeholders.
led by the ministries concerned, that by December, we will be able to launch digital ID, where every Kenyan don't have to carry any paper, plastic or otherwise, as an ID that they should be able to be identified digitally using their iris or their fingerprints, and we can transact without the necessity of people struggling to identify who they are.
Who is struggling to identify who they are? Oh, I forgot. I forgot to go on the other one. I have to show y'all some of. Oh man, I did this one too soon. So this immigration stuff, some of it has to do with Africa. Please don't let me forget to show that one.
ID that they should be able to be identified digitally using their iris or their fingerprints.
Their
and
eyes.
we can transact without the necessity of people struggling to identify who they are. And the proudest part of it is that we don't have to spend the billions that we have spent on all the
Okay,
other,
thank you.
manenos, as all of you know.
We're taking things that are, genetically modified organisms and we're injecting.
You what? Who is this? What?
We're taking things that are, genetically modified organisms and we're injecting them in little
Organisms.
We just shoot them right into the vein.
He was fired just 3 weeks before he was set to retire.
And now he's becoming an industry whistleblower.
Kenya is in serious trouble.
Genetically modified organisms and we're
Organisms.
As all of you know.
we're taking things that are, genetically modified organisms and we're injecting them in little kids' arms. We just shoot them right into the vein.
Kenya is in serious trouble. Now, for you to accept this, that means you're going to be completely surveilled and controlled. Think about it. So they have targeted the new babies, of course, even the ordinary citizens, the grown-ups, the young ones, the teenagers, and even the elderly ones will receive this digital ID. But they will then create a new generation where they'll be completely under this digital ID and they have no choice.
What do
Wow.
you think? Let me say this right here. Let me put it blatantly or bluntly. People say, well, what's the big deal, Go Black? I mean, it's a digital ID. People don't have IDs. They're
And his
antiquated when it comes
kids,
to their
his family.
so-called technology, and just a quick way of identifying people. Au contraire, brothers and sisters. You see, I have an advantage that most people do because I have the so-called a mindset. Because I was in damn Erica, put the D in front of America, capitalize the E, damn Erica, for majority of my life. I've served 20 years in the military, served in the intelligence and other commands that were there in the military. And I understand the way that they think. Yes, that's right. So when you talk about any time a Western world wants to do anything with black folks, it's something that they're trying to advance for their own common good, not yours. So what is it? Well, we know that he says, the President Ruto says in Kenya, it'd be Irish, or fingerprint identification. Well, yes, that sounds innocent as much as we may believe. Of course, we have to use fingerprints, when we have to get visas coming into other countries. And some of you all who work in high security places may even have to use your eyes to enter in. But what is the downfall or the cons behind the very thing that you might think is so innocent? Well, Bill Gates said they shoot an identity ID within the baby. We know that the so-called Bible or the conspiracy theorists who are out here are talking about, the so-called Antichrist will be the chip taking on the 666 image of the evil one, if you will. But let's go further than that. When you really think about it, putting a chip in someone, we know is an identity that you just can't remove. It's there. It will always be there. But what if you decide that you just don't want to be identified? Matter of fact, what goes on that identification? What is on there that would be so interesting that Bill Gates and others would want to retrieve if something happens to you? Let me give you a scenario. Let's just say.
Yo, is this like branding, like back in the day? when they used to put that iron tube, you know, in a brand juice so that if you get lost or escape or, you know, they'll be able to know who you belong to? I mean, what? And why is Bill Gates thinking, I mean, who? I thought he was just Microsoft. He part of the shot that now they saying, oh man, do I have to show y'all that? Oh my God, hold on. I don't even know why they trust in this man, him or Fauci or Fauci or whatever. This is just so mind blowing, y'all. They're saying now that a study in cell host, Oxford, revealed that the COVID-19 triggers a kill switch in CD8 plus T cells. What is a kill switch? Oh, that was just a few days ago. Can y'all double tap the screen? Put it like right over here, like on your phone. No, so it don't say nothing. Oh, maybe my volume. Oh, see. Y'all see that? Scientists discovered hidden kill switch. Oh, hold on. Turning them into a hyper aggressive y'all see that? Oh, it's that persists for years. Chronic inflammation, autoimmune disease like lupus. And wasn't Bill Gates a part of this? Okay. Yeah. Wasn't Bill Gates, wasn't he a part? So now you want to inject kids in Africa. For what? Now for what now? For what now? For what now? So you done took, you and your wife, I thought she left you. But anyway, y'all done took on a liking experiment over in Africa to stick babies and track them. So you can come back later and, you know, and do some strange things with them. Because ain't you in the Epstein files?
Let me give you a scenario. Let's just say, because there are those out there who've already made mention that the melanin in our skin is highly desirable.
Yep.
For the sake of many of them maintaining a youth. But let's go to the next place of this. You know, desirable for the sake of many of them maintaining a... Let me give you a scenario. Let's just say, because there are those out there who've already made mention that the melanin in our skin is highly desirable for the sake of many of them maintaining a youth. But let's go to the next place of this. You know, I had to do some research and find out what is the child's birth rate per year in Kenya. To my amazement, it's 1.2 million children born per year. Now you had to look up the so-called neonatal mortality rate, or the children that die. It's 3.36%. Now you might say, oh, 3% of baby deaths out of 1.2 million? That doesn't seem like a lot anyway. Oh, yes, it is. That's 40,300 and something children that die a year, and that's just Kenya. Can you imagine if on this ID that it has, of course, the genetic or the DNA genetic code for each individual baby? Of course, we know they're going to have the blood type. We're going to have all the different types of where many people who are going to want to have so-called, your organs, transplants and things, which is high on the scale for sales around the world, would be a great idea when you don't have to retrieve paperwork and finding out what is this baby's makeup. And so the baby can easily be sold when you go ahead and quickly identify by hitting the so-called barcode on that child,
Oh
and
my
then turn
God,
around
this is
and
crazy.
cast it around the world of what is for sale.
Human trafficking. Human trafficking. Oh my God. Free labor. Like a long time ago. Like making it great again. Free labor. Free labor.
We already know that the evil exists around this world.
I'm so glad God greater
And we
than
know the
any
Western
plan
worlds
that
have
they coming up with or trying to come up with or have already plotted. I'm so glad God is bigger and greater than any of that mess. But but it don't mean they ain't trying. Let's go.
run tests on many of Africans, hence HIV that has been spread throughout the continent of Africa by those who had their own evil agendas and
Right.
trying to deplete the population in Africa. I don't know when they're going to wake up. We don't die, we multiply. But they also in America have done programs, St. Louis, Missouri, that they drove around in 1973, spraying in the communities, trying to find out. St. Louis in 1973, where they drove around and sprayed toxin illuminants to see whether or not what the effects would be upon a black people for the military's so-called advancements in biological warfare, or the Tuskegee Airmen, where these
I
black
agree,
men
bro.
were suffering with syphilis and they had the so-called cure, and then they just used them as lab rats to follow along.
They gave them and they gave it to them. I mean, they didn't all just have it. They injected them with it. What is it, Miss Edwards boys? Oh yeah.
For 20, 30, 40
I
years
mean,
to
truth be
see what the
told, if I could be truthful, I mean, I always am. I think that situation, that experiment is why I never trust a flu shot. My mom and my sister and them, and they would get it, and My sister would get long, she would get fever blisters, on about her mouth every time it brought it. The shot that's gonna bring it out. They put the virus in you to make. Oh hell no! And my mama would say, "Girl, you better go get your flu shot." No ma'am. No ma'am. No ma'am. I'm sorry. But it was the Miss Evers boys with them injecting syphilis in them as an experiment. Nah, I ain't going.
Effects are only for their own selfish gain, or when you talk about when it was the drugs, whether it was the heroin, whether it was other psychedelic drugs that they have given to prisoners. We saw that there
let's
was a
just be
documentary
real.
done.
The AIDS, where did it come from? I kind of remember some about syphilis story. Yep, they injected that in there and watched them to see how they would. I think they was trying out a new medicine or something to see. Oh man, it was just crazy. And then they stopped supplying her with the medicine to inject them just to watch them suffer. No. So when I'm seeing stuff like kill switch in the shot, man, this is crazy. All this intentional man-made. Oh man, this is just, it's kind of overwhelming. I ain't gonna even
Of
lie.
black people that were in the prisons, that they had made promises that if they go ahead through these so-called tests, they could benefit. And only to find out years later, these tests they put them under basically caused them psychotic. Many died early on. You see, we're always the test bed of many of these countries and nations. And I'm tired of these African leaders who think that everybody's their friend, that they can go ahead and have confidence that they're out for the good of the people. You see, Africa, y'all need us who come from the Western world. Because apparently, somehow, some way,
Lab
many of
rats,
y'all are
right?
fooled. And President Ruto, I'm surprised at you. But you did say it in your statement, stakeholders. You see, this is all about money, family. This is all about greed.
Absolutely.
Because everybody stands the chance to make money except for those poor children who will be inoculated with daggone a chip or some identification, so that then if something happens while they're through their infancy stage, their adolescent stage, they can just go ahead and find the information and then sell them off. Now you say that I'm crazy. Check the history of these evil people who go around the world making billions of dollars off the backs of us. Well, family, that's all I got to say, but it's time for us to wake up.
I agree. Hold on. Y'all, I need 40 likes real quick. Come on. I'm over an hour. I shouldn't have to go. It's late in the midnight hour. Now, I need 40 likes. Double tap the screen. Let's go.
It's time for us to think about it, because if
It's time for us to make a change. I'm past thinking about it. These people trying to take us out. Yeah, before I get, let me go back to that other one. Let me play this one live.
Interesting role because you attract a lot of media attention. And even just a regular internet checkup shows a lot of websites that fact check misinformation, disinformation.
I need to get back to that one I was just telling you about. Hold on. Savior schemer. Hi, Charles.
Some rate him as Africa's guardian angel, funding vaccines, farm.
I won't let it play while I watch. What was I watching him at? Hold on. Come on, I need 30 likes. I think the hostages have, I don't even remember what. Is it this one? I don't know if it's this one or not. Let me see. Man, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on.
Burkina Faso. Uganda could soon receive its first immigrant deportee from the United States as a part of a controversial deal that has seen Washington send illegal immigrants to countries that are not their own.
President Donald Trump's mass deportation plan is in full.
Y'all ready?
Uganda could soon receive its first immigrant deportee from the United States as a part of a controversial deal that has seen Washington send illegal immigrants to countries that are not their own.
President Donald Trump's mass deportation plan is in full swing. And of course, we're hearing from a whole host of communities that are not supposed to be over here, right? In regards to how they are affected by Trump saying, hey, you gotta go.
Today I signed an executive order to launch the first ever self-deportation program for illegal aliens.
The United States has just stopped issuing visas to citizens of Burkina Faso after the West African nation refused to accept deportees. It doesn't get more serious than this.
If illegal aliens choose to remain in
To
America,
refuse to accept.
Faso after the West African nation
program
Refuse
for
to
illegal
accept.
aliens.
The United States has just stopped issuing visas to citizens of Burkina Faso after the West African nation refused to accept deportees. It doesn't get more serious than this.
If illegal aliens choose to remain in America, they're remaining illegally and they will face severe consequences.
Reports say President Donald Trump has urged visiting African leaders to accept migrants deported from the U.S.
Ghanaian President John Dramani Mahama said.
So Donald Trump, see, this is what was going on with Venezuela. He's telling them that they have to accept these illegal aliens that they sent, gonna bring them over to these foreign countries, and they have to accept them. Is that what I'm hearing?
Refused to accept deportees. It doesn't get more serious than this.
If illegal aliens choose to remain in America, they're remaining illegally and they will face severe consequences.
Reports say President Donald Trump has urged visiting African leaders to accept migrants deported from the U.S.
Ghanaian President John Dramani Mahama said that Ghana has agreed to accept West African nationals who were deported from the U.S. Mahama later confirmed that Ghana had already received a group of 14 deportees, including Nigerians.
So y'all, how much y'all want to bet they're gonna try to start sending black people to Africa when they feel like we don't know who you are, or problems identifying you, and you are troubled and you are a career criminal? We finna send you to Ghana. Is that what I'm hearing? I mean, I know they're saying deportees, but, you know, we know that they have sent people to foreign places, and Africa was one of them. Even though they weren't supposed to. We need to know this,
Dramani
y'all.
Mahama said that Ghana has agreed to accept West African nationals who were deported from the US. Mahama later confirmed that Ghana had already received a group of 14 deportees, including Nigerians and one Gambian. He later said the
A
deportees had already
Colombian.
been facilitated a return to their own countries.
We are only
Received a group of 14 deportees, including Nigerians and one Gambian. He later said the deportees had already been facilitated a return to their own countries.
we are only help our brothers and sisters. We are coming in purely on humanitarian grounds, expressing Pan-African solidarity, which Ghana is famed for.
It's over. While some African nations quietly opened their doors to U.S. deportees, one country has taken a stand that's shaking the world.
Burkina Faso says it has refused a proposal from the Trump administration to accept non-citizens deported from the
Non-citizens. Rejected. We know he mad at him.
United States. The country's foreign minister called the proposal indecent, adding that Burkina Faso is a land of dignity, not deportation.
Ghana, Rwanda, South Sudan, Eswatini, all have accepted people expelled from the United States. But Burkina Faso, under Captain Ibrahim Traore, has drawn a red line.
We repeated the same thing. So it's curious whether it's the repeated confirmation of our refusal to accept undesirable nationals or the fact of considering our country as a land for deportation, which is both unworthy and indecent.
The message is clear. Burkina Faso is a land of dignity, not a dumping ground for deportees. And this time, not even Donald Trump's America could bend their will. Since returning to the White House, President Donald Trump's administration has intensified it. Donald Trump's America could bend their will. Since returning to the White House, President Donald Trump's administration has intensified its controversial plan to deport migrants, sending thousands back to third countries, often places
And he's the
they have
migrant.
no connection to.
Immigrant.
The policy has frustrated countless Africans. They have no. President Donald Trump's administration has intensified its controversial plan to deport migrants, sending thousands back to third countries, often places they have no connection to. The policy has frustrated countless African citizens and families torn apart by sudden deportations, while many African governments have bowed under diplomatic pressure. Burkina Faso has done the unthinkable. Traore's government has outright rejected the U.S. plan to send deported migrants to Burkinabe soil, a move that sent shockwaves from Washington to Ouagadougou. The country's foreign affairs minister, Karamoko Jean-Marie Traore, made the announcement live on national television on Thursday, October 9th, 2025, calling the U.S. proposal indecent and contrary to the values of dignity that defined Captain Ibrahim Traore's vision. Shortly after the announcement, the U.S. Embassy in Ouagadougou suspended all visa services, forcing Burkinabe citizens to apply from neighboring Togo instead. Traore's government immediately denied that defined Captain Ibrahim Traore's vision. Shortly after the announcement, the U.S. Embassy in Ouagadougou suspended all visas and families torn apart by sudden deportations, while many African governments have bowed under diplomatic pressure. Burkina Faso has done the unthinkable. Traore's government has outright rejected the U.S. plan to send deported migrants to Burkinabe soil, a move that sent shockwaves from Washington to Ouagadougou. The country's foreign affairs minister, Karamoko Jean-Marie Traore, made the announcement live on national television on Thursday, October 9th, 2025, calling the U.S. proposal indecent and contrary to the values of dignity that defined
It don't
Captain
apply to
Ibrahim
him.
Traore's vision. Shortly after the announcement,
Them.
the U.S. Embassy in Ouagadougou suspended all visa services, forcing Burkinabe citizens to apply from
Okay,
neighboring
y'all,
Togo.
hold on. Let me read this message. Let me see who it's from. Woo, somebody mad. Oh, John P. Brown. He said, I should be ashamed posting this. These people are crazy as hell. Why should I be ashamed?
Ouagadougou suspended all visa services, forcing Burkinabe citizens to apply from neighboring Togo instead. Traore's government immediately denounced the move as blackmail. And now, the world is watching. Will the United States retaliate further, or has Burkina Faso just set the stage for Africa's next wave of defiance? Welcome to Win Africa, where we bring you Africa's boldest stories, unfiltered, fearless, and from the people's perspective.
The Wonder Oven Pro is
why
an
should I
innovative
be
tool that
ashamed,
will
y'all?
change the way you cook.
Can somebody tell me why? Y'all,
You know,
I
I said in
need
the
30
past,
likes.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Regional Cooperation.
Can I get 30 likes, please? Why should I be ashamed? People are, it blows my mind. It blows my mind how I don't know who these people are. I can't assume if they white, black, front, back, left. I can't. I mean, but why should I be ashamed of what other people, to make sure that the tea sippers, me and the tea sippers, are aware of current events? Why shouldn't the people who do the wrong, why are they not, I mean, why shouldn't they be ashamed? You come to over here to tell me I should be ashamed, but the people who do what they do should not. So I should be ashamed for putting it out there. But let them do what they do. Or is me putting it out there putting them to shame? I mean, I don't know. But I just think it's a whole bunch of hypocrisy.
And Burkinabe Abroad has come to provide us with more information about the procedure for obtaining an American visa for Burkinabe citizens, following information circulating on social media, which reports a new decision made by the American authorities. Good evening, Mr. Minister. Good evening, Ms. Kelly. So according to this information circulating on social media, we learned that Burkinabe citizens applying for American visas will now have to go to Lomé in Togo for the formalities. Can you confirm this? So I must say that it was with surprise indeed that we received this very evening a verbal note from the United States Embassy in Ouagadougou, which actually confirmed this rumor that had so far been circulating on social media. Officially, the primary reason explicitly stated in this formal verbal note is that the nation of Burkina Faso, much like several other African countries across the continent, is currently included on a specific list of states whose respective nationals have unfortunately not fully complied with the established and clearly defined rules and regulations regarding proper visa usage and adherence to immigration policies. This concerns tourist visas as well as student visas. And so
when you say not comply, they really are saying that you didn't accept the bribe. You did not accept the bribe. You did not become pro-Israel. And you are refusing to be a part of this new world order. So now we're going to make it hard for you.
this particular regard, the United States Embassy has, let's say, acted quite promptly and efficiently to fully implement this temporary suspension of issuing tourist and student visas to all Burkinabe citizens who will now be specifically required to travel to their embassy in the neighboring country of Togo to officially obtain these essential travel documents. For the official note, of which I have a copy, also specifies that the procedures will have to be restarted, not only for registration, but also for payment, in order to obtain these visas at the United States Embassy in Togo. So this serves to confirm that what had until now been considered a rumor has been confirmed by the United States diplomatic mission here in Burkina Faso. Now, I have mentioned these reasons as the official motives. It turns out that the official note we received contains suggestions and refers to an agreement that the United States has been trying to propose to the Burkinabe side since the Trump administration took office.
Wow.
As soon as this administration began, the embassy approached us to make this proposal as part of the implementation of American migration policy. What was it about? It was about offering African states that wished to participate, since they are in a process of identifying and expelling nationals who live in the United States and who are not in compliance with their residency status, to expel them. The proposal that was made was to see if Burkina Faso, aside from our own nationals, was willing to receive other people who would be expelled by the United States. Naturally, this proposal, which we considered at the time to be indecent, is completely contrary to the value of dignity that is at the very core of Captain Ibrahim Traoré's vision. We said that Burkina Faso could not be that destination. After that, we had several meetings, always along the same lines. It became quite clear that they were absolutely insistent on us accepting this particular measure. With the official adoption of the decree making visas entirely free of charge, they came back to us again saying, "We clearly see that there is indeed a strong Pan-African spirit. And since these visas are now completely free, are you truly willing to receive all non-Burkinabe nationals who genuinely wish to travel to Burkina Faso?" Our response was quite clear. Any African national who wishes to come freely to Burkina Faso and pays for their own ticket is welcome here in Faso. If they decide on their own, buy their ticket, and are given a free visa, they can come to Burkina Faso. As for nationals who are being forced to choose a destination, because we are a country with free visas, we do not want to become a destination for deportation. This vision was quite clear. Burkina Faso is a destination. Burkina Faso is not a land of deportation. And we made this clear by saying that the decision of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, which was to offer hospitality to all Africans, should not be seen as an opportunity for a third country to get rid of certain populations that it considers undesirable. We are indeed leaving behind a truly welcoming land, a land that is openly accessible to all Africans, as long as they make the conscious decision to come of their very own free will.
Let's pause for a second. If you've watched this video up to this point, or you're still tuned in, it means you truly care about
Secretary of State in charge of this issue, who once again brought up the possibility of offering us free visas as an incentive. We repeated the same thing. So it's curious whether it's the repeated confirmation of our refusal to accept undesirable nationals, or the fact of considering our country as a land for deportation, which is both unworthy and indecent, or the fact that this decision was made immediately afterwards. So you can understand with me that the connection is quickly made. Is this a form of pressure? Is this blackmail? In any case, it is important to clarify that in the vision of the Popular Revolution of Burkina Faso, this is a land of dignity, and Burkina Faso will remain a land of dignity, a destination, and not a land of deportation. So, Mr. Minister, precisely, we have learned about the upcoming visit at the end of October of Afro descendants to Burkina Faso, or rather to Burkina Faso. Is this visit connected to the decision that has just been made by the American authorities?
Freedom of speech is being taken away.
His name was Halma Keeper.
He was only 16 when he saw it.
I would clearly say no. And as you may know, we were surprised by this measure, which came suddenly after. Is it connected to the decision that has just been made by the American authorities? I would clearly say no. And as you may know, we were surprised by this measure, which came suddenly after our categorical refusal to receive people who are considered undesirable. This is not to label them as undesirable people. It's related to the fact that the current government's policy, unfortunately, sees every foreign national as a threat, which is very serious. And that's what we repeated to the American representatives, that among these people, there are many Africans, many Latin Americans, many non-Americans who live there, who have sacrificed their lives and contributed to building peace and the economy of the United States. They have done every kind of job there is. They have cleaned out the sewers, they have swept the streets, they have taken care of the elderly in nursing homes. They have worked in all kinds of services to provide Americans with a decent life. These people are now being labeled as undesirable because they entered the country illegally. It is, of course, a sovereign measure. It is, of course, a sovereign measure, but this measure does not be, let's say, the main reason for simply picking random destinations in Africa and dropping them off there. So, to return to the question of Afro-descendants, the Afro-descendants who wish to come to Burkina Faso are brothers and sisters who want to reconnect with their own history, to embark on a journey of self-discovery. They have seen in Burkina Faso a land with which they identify. They come here out of love, and many of them wish to settle in Burkina. I should point out that many expect to acquire Burkinabe nationality, and we are working on preparing for this stay. So these people come freely. These are not people who are being forced to choose a destination. Do not confuse the two. It is not the same thing. And anyone who decides to come freely, who is not forced to stay within an area defined by a third-party state or told you must leave, here is a list of countries from which you must choose your destination. These people can come here without worry. So these are two different things, and we will always work to remain a welcoming land for all these people. But as I said, we are not a land of deportation. So it's quite clear. And I want to reassure our Afro-descendant brothers and sisters who are planning to visit Burkina Faso that they will always be at home here, and that we will take measures to ensure they truly feel African, that they feel they are on a land of dignity. So, Mr. Minister, in light of the decision we're discussing tonight, this decision by the American authorities, how do you see the future of cooperation between Burkina Faso and the United States? Burkina Faso has always been very open to constructive dialogue.
Helicopters waiting on the people.
The new approach, which has been brought about by the revolution, and indeed by popular progress today, is to truly emphasize the crucial aspect of mutual respect and understanding. We will maintain good relations with all states that respect us as human beings, with all states that respect our dignity. Naturally, the measure that has been taken would not leave us indifferent and leave us indifferent. In diplomacy, we speak of reciprocity. We will take the necessary measures up to the extent of those taken by the American authorities without compromising the friendship, solidarity, and brotherhood between the people of Burkina Faso and the American people. Because we must not confuse things. There is a sympathy between communities, between populations who want to work together, but who often find themselves in spaces where authority creates limits or walls that separate them. So this is to reassure you that we remain an open land. a truly welcoming and accessible nation. We are still a country of open dialogue, a country that...
So they came over, they went over to Africa, stole folk, and now they want to dump folk. So we stole them, but now we want to give them back. Is that what I'm feeling? And if you don't take them back, then we finna have some problems, and y'all can't come over here no more. Is that what's going on? I'm waiting for y'all to get the lights up. Double tap your screen. It's too late in the midnight. We was already here before that. Yeah, but they came over. This young man right here, he ain't playing no games with them. He said, y'all can't whoop me. You can't do... What is this one up here? And he said, y'all not... y'all can't use us no more.
September 28th, 2025, a date that will be remembered as the day West Africa's financial ground cracked open. Overnight, chaos swept through markets as the CFA franc, a colonial-era currency still tied to France, soared on the black market to €1 equals 850 CFA, nearly 30% above the official rate. Within just 21 days, the price of a sack of rice in Ouagadougou doubled, long lines snaked outside banks, and ordinary people, fearful their money was becoming worthless, rushed to withdraw their life savings. It wasn't just an economic crisis, it was a crisis of faith in the very system that governed their lives. And then, as fear rippled across the continent, a familiar voice echoed from Florida. Donald J. Trump, no longer in office but still wielding immense influence, issued a bold proclamation. Africa cannot remain chained to France's colonial currency. I will create the Afro-dollar. Issued a bold proclamation. Africa cannot remain chained to France's colonial currency. I will create the Afro-dollar, led by the United States.
The Afro-dollar?
It wasn't just an economic crisis.
Did he say an Afro-dollar? Did he say Afro-dollar, y'all? What in the heck is a Afro-dollar that Trump is finna
to
create?
Withdraw their life savings. It wasn't just an economic crisis. It was a crisis of faith in the very system that governed their lives. And then, as fear rippled across the continent, a familiar voice echoed from Florida. Donald J. Trump, no longer in office but still wielding immense influence, issued a bold proclamation. Africa cannot remain chained to France's colonial currency. I will create the Afro-dollar, led by the United States. With that statement, a new battlefield was declared, one not fought with armies but with currencies, influence, and control. This is no longer just about money, it's about power, sovereignty, and who gets to write the next chapter of Africa's future. But is Trump's Afro-dollar a key to liberation, or a new kind of leash dressed as salvation? Can a continent truly stand tall if its currency is born in Washington instead of Ouagadougou? Stay with us, because the battle for Africa's financial soul has just begun, and the choices made now will echo for generations. October 1st, 2025, just 3 days after...
I see why they was having a battle in the White House at that meeting that they had, and somebody told him what they told him. Yeah, I see why now.
The CFA franc crisis sent shockwaves through West Africa. A private jet from
I
Washington
need
touched
20
down in
likes.
Accra, Ghana.
Afro dollar.
On board was a delegation unlike any the continent had seen, financiers from Wall Street, officials from the U.S. Treasury, and, at its head, Elon Musk, handpicked by Donald Trump as special envoy for the Afro Dollar Project. The plan they carried wasn't just bold, it was audacious. Private jet from Washington touched down in Accra, Ghana. On board was a delegation unlike any the continent had seen, financiers from Wall Street, officials from the U.S. Treasury, and, at its head, Elon Musk, handpicked by Donald Trump as special envoy for the Afro Dollar Project. The plan they carried wasn't just bold, it was audacious. Dubbed Aphrodigi, it envisioned a new digital financial infrastructure blanketing Africa, powered by Starlink satellites to reach even the most remote villages. The Afro dollar itself would rest on 3 towering pillars: 200 tons of gold secured at Fort Knox, a promise of hard backing, $10 billion in credit lines from America's most powerful financial institutions, and a direct commitment from the Federal Reserve, anchoring the currency to the global financial system. Washington framed it as a liberation project, a currency to free Africa from French chains. Yet beneath the promises, hard questions echoed in every capital from Dakar to Dar es Salaam. If the CFA tied African nations to Paris, would the Afro dollar simply reroute that dependency to Washington? Could true sovereignty ever come from a currency minted abroad, regulated by the Fed, and linked to Wall Street's interests? This was more than economics. It was a contest for control over a $3.4 trillion continental economy and the future of 1.4 billion people. And as Musk spoke of a monetary revolution, one question grew louder. October 2nd, 2025, just 24 hours after Elon Musk's delegation landed in Ghana, the political temperature in West Africa exploded. In Ouagadougou, President Ibrahim Traoré summoned an emergency summit of the West African Economic and Monetary Union, WEMOA, a gathering that would mark one of the boldest monetary declarations in African history. Cameras flashed as he rose to speak, his voice steady but charged with conviction. Africa cannot exchange one chain for another. If there is to be a new currency, it must be created by Africans for Africans. The room fell silent, and then erupted. Mali and Niger rallied behind him instantly, calling for a joint commission to design a sovereign West African currency free from both Paris and Washington. But the hall was far from unanimous. Côte d'Ivoire and Senegal, deeply tied to French and U.S. financial systems, voiced fears of economic collapse if they turned their backs on external backing. The fracture lines were clear. This was no longer just a debate about money. It was a battle over the soul and future of the continent. Outside, the streets told another story. Thousands of students in Lagos, Abuja, and Niamey poured into the streets, waving banners that read, "No to CFA, no to Trump dollar." What began as a currency dispute was morphing into something larger, a generational revolt against the inherited architecture of dependency. From university lecture halls to farmers' cooperatives, a simple demand echoed: Africa's wealth must fund Africa's future. Analysts estimated that replacing the CFA with a U.S.-anchored Afro dollar could hand Washington indirect influence over more than $900 billion in annual trade flows across 14 nations. For many Africans, that was a price too high. A different master is still a master, one young activist declared on live TV. We want freedom, not new chains plated in gold. The Afro Dollar Project had intended to solve a monetary crisis, but Traoré had reframed the conversation entirely. It was no longer about currency design. It was about sovereignty, dignity, and self-determination. The battle over Africa's financial soul has now erupted far beyond its borders, into the halls of global power.
In Paris, President Emmanuel Macron took to the podium with uncharacteristic fury, accusing Trump of undermining African sovereignty and branding the Afro-dollar a new face of imperialism. It was a stunning reversal, the former colonial power suddenly positioning itself as a defender of African independence. Out of principle, but out of fear of losing control over a system it built more than 75 years ago. Meanwhile, Beijing seized the moment. Within weeks, China launched the Digital Yuan Africa Initiative, a central bank-backed digital currency tied to its Belt and Road megaprojects in Ethiopia, Kenya, and Djibouti. Officials boasted that it would redefine trade without Western gatekeepers. The result? Africa was now the epicenter of a three-way monetary clash: the old guard's CFA franc, Washington's Afro-dollar, and Beijing's digital yuan. At the United Nations, Trump doubled down. Those who refuse will miss the greatest opportunity in history.
Man,
But
ain't
in
nobody falling for
Ouagadougou,
no banana
Traore's
tail
reply was swift and uncompromising. We will not sell our soul to Washington. Africa's currency must be born from the sweat, sacrifice, and intellect of Africans. The stakes could not be higher. More than $3.2 trillion in projected trade by 2035 hangs in the balance. And whoever controls Africa's money may shape its destiny. The revolution that began in conference halls has now spilled into the streets, and it is far messier than anyone anticipated. As the monetary tug-of-war intensifies, daily life across West Africa is being upended. In Ouagadougou, the price of rice, once steady at about 45 cents per pound, has more than doubled to nearly 95 cents, squeezing families already living on less than $2 a day. Merchants in local markets are refusing to accept CFA francs, calling them worthless paper, while others hoard goods, waiting for clarity on which currency will prevail. Across villages and cities, anxious citizens are emptying their savings accounts, converting their money into gold coins, diesel barrels, or even livestock. Anything they believe will hold value as faith.
Okay, keep asking y'all to hit double tap your screen. Just double tap. 1, 2. If you're on your phone, if you're on a computer or a tablet or a device, there are 3 dots at the top right. Hit those dots, please. And then hit the like. Can I get 15 likes, please? Thank you.
Then the CFA evaporates. What was once considered a colonial relic, but at least a stable one, has now become a symbol of uncertainty. We hated the CFA, says one shopkeeper, but we could still buy bread with it. Now I don't know if tomorrow it will buy anything at all. Protests are spreading like wildfire. In Dakar, students march with signs reading, "No to Afro-dollar, no to new chains," while in Bamako, crowds chant, "Africa's money for Africa's people." But we could still buy bread with it. Now I don't know if tomorrow it will buy anything at all. Protests are spreading like wildfire. In Dakar, students march with signs reading, "No to Afro-dollar, no to new chains," while in Bamako, crowds chant, "Africa's money for Africa's people." Clashes are not
Afro-dollar.
violent, but deeply ideological.
Somebody took their likes back. Get my lights back up. You take the light back, I'm stopping. I'm not gonna play games with y'all tonight. I ain't in that type of mood. I'm tired.
Captivity are set to be freed any moment now. This is a live picture in Gaza. This is a Fox News camera we've been monitoring. There have been ambulances there at the scene, and this is an area that we are closely watching for any movement. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Kelsey Carlson. The hostages release comes as President Trump heads to the Middle East to sign a historic peace deal brokered by his administration.
Double tap the screen so we can move forward. Get the lights up.
Between those who see the Afro-dollar as liberation from Paris, spreading like wildfire. In Dakar, students march with signs reading, "No to Afro-dollar, no to new chains," while in Bamako, crowds chant, "Africa's money for Africa's people." Clashes are not violent, but deeply ideological. Between those who see the Afro-dollar as liberation from Paris, and those who fear it as merely Washington's collar in a new form. Through it all, Ibrahim Traoré has emerged as more than a president. He is becoming a symbol. In speeches reminiscent of Thomas Sankara, he warns, "True independence always carries a price. The question is whether we are willing to pay it." To his supporters, he is the voice of a generation determined to reclaim its destiny. To his critics, he is playing with fire that could burn the fragile economies of the Sahel. The crisis is no longer just about currency. It is about trust, identity, and sovereignty. And as markets buckle and tempers flare, one question echoes across the continent. Is this chaos the painful birth of a new financial era, or the first crack in a dangerous experiment? The monetary earthquake that began in West Africa is no longer a regional tremor. It is shaking the pillars of global finance. From Washington to Paris, from Beijing to Moscow, the battle over Africa's monetary future has become a high-stakes geopolitical showdown, where currency is no longer just money, it's power, influence, and control. And in this new battlefield, Ibrahim Traoré's defiant stance has forced every major capital to reveal its hand. In Washington, the Afro-dollar is being sold to Congress and Wall Street as a Marshall Plan for the 21st century. The narrative is clear. Just as the United States rebuilt Europe with dollars after World War II, it now seeks to liberate Africa from colonial monetary systems. Major financial institutions, from J.P. Morgan Chase to Goldman Sachs, are reportedly preparing multi-billion-dollar liquidity facilities, while venture funds linked to Silicon Valley are designing digital wallets and payment apps meant to run on the Afro-dollar system. The U.S. But beneath the lofty language of liberation and partnership, critics warn of a familiar danger: monetary dependence wrapped in modern packaging. Congressional hearings reveal fears that control over Africa's money supply would give Washington immense leverage, the power to approve or deny loans, freeze assets, and pressure governments without deploying a single soldier. If you control the currency, one senator admitted privately, you don't need to control the land. That candid remark crystallizes the real stakes. Is Afro-dollar about freedom, or about replacing one master with another? Across the Atlantic, Paris is watching with mounting alarm. For over 7 decades, the CFA franc has been the cornerstone of France's post-colonial influence, a mechanism that has quietly funneled wealth, trade, and political alignment back to Europe. Now, that system faces existential threat. President Emmanuel Macron, in a speech before the French Parliament, accused Washington of economic invasion under the banner of liberation, and warned that replacing the CFA would destabilize 14 francophone economies. Behind closed doors, French officials are exploring countermeasures, from offering new bilateral credit lines worth 5 billion euros to proposing a reformed eco-currency tied to the euro. Yet even in Paris, voices are emerging that question whether France can maintain its historical grip without provoking backlash. One editorial in Le Monde asked bluntly, "Are we fighting to help Africa or to keep Africa under us?" Meanwhile, Beijing is moving at lightning speed. The People's Bank of China has accelerated its Digital Yuan Africa initiative, a blockchain-based currency designed to integrate with China's Belt and Road projects across Ethiopia, Kenya, and Djibouti. By linking infrastructure loans, port construction, and resource contracts to digital payments, Beijing aims to bypass Western systems entirely and tie African economies directly into its own orbit. Chinese state banks are already negotiating deals worth $22 billion to finance renewable energy, railways, and industrial parks, all denominated in digital yuan. A senior Chinese official summarized the strategy. "If Washington wants to write Africa's future in dollars, we will write ours in code." This three-way contest, CFA franc, Afro dollar, and digital yuan, is now a global chessboard, with Africa at its center, and the world is watching closely. In Brussels, EU officials are debating whether to intervene with a European-backed digital currency project. In Moscow, analysts argue that Africa's monetary sovereignty could create new openings for the BRICS alliance to offer alternatives beyond the dollar system. Even Doha is exploring partnerships with African central banks, seeking to position itself as a financial mediator in an increasingly polarized landscape. But beneath the geopolitical maneuvering lies a deeper question, one that goes beyond currency itself. The battle is not simply over paper bills or digital tokens. It is over who writes the rules of Africa's economic destiny. For decades, decisions about African money were made in Paris, Washington, or Beijing, often without African voices at the table. Now, for the first time, those voices are rising. Protesters from Lagos to Bamako chant, "Our money, our future." African economists are publishing papers on monetary sovereignty and resource-backed currency models, and university lecture halls buzz with debates once confined to think tanks in New York or London. Yet the path ahead is treacherous. Each choice carries risks. Accepting the Afro dollar could provide liquidity and technological infrastructure, but it might also tie African economies to the whims of the Federal Reserve. Sticking with the CFA offers short-term stability, but at the cost of continued dependency. Embracing the digital yuan promises diversification, but could deepen reliance on Chinese credit and technology. As one Ghanaian economist put it, "We are not choosing between good and bad. We are choosing between chains of gold, chains of paper, and chains of code." Amid this storm, sticking with the CFA offers short-term stability, but at the cost of continued dependency. Embracing the digital yuan promises diversification, but could deepen reliance on Chinese credit and technology. As one Ghanaian economist put it, "We are not choosing between good and bad. We are choosing between chains of gold, chains of paper, and chains of code." Amid this storm, Ibrahim Traore's words in Ouagadougou continue to echo. "We cannot exchange one shackle for another. If a new currency must rise, it must be born from the sweat, the soil, and the spirit of Africa." His defiance is more than rhetoric. It is a challenge to the very architecture of global finance. And that is why his stance unsettles so many capitals. Because if Africa proves it can build a currency beyond the reach of Washington, Paris, or Beijing, it will have rewritten the unwritten rule of the post-colonial era, that sovereignty ends where money begins. The world now stands at a crossroads. One path leads to a new form of dependency, smoother, digital, and dressed in the language of partnership, but dependency nonetheless. The other leads toward the uncharted terrain of self-determination, harder, riskier, and without guarantees, but also more authentic. Which path Africa chooses will shape not only its economic future, but also the balance of global power for decades to come. As the dust settles on this new financial battlefield, one question looms larger than any other, not just for Africa, but for the world itself. Can a continent once defined by its resources now define itself by its currency? Or will the old empires of money find new ways to tighten their grip? The turning point came not from Washington, Paris, or Beijing, but from Ouagadougou. On a humid October morning, under a banner that read, "One Africa, One Currency," President Ibrahim Traoré stepped up to the podium and unveiled a project that could redefine the continent's destiny, the African Currency Initiative, ACI. It was not just another economic policy, it was a declaration of independence. For the first time in modern history, African economists, central bankers, grassroots cooperatives, and civil society groups would come together to design a currency by Africans for Africans. The symbolism was powerful. ACI proposed a new monetary framework backed not by foreign reserves in Fort Knox or European vaults, but by Africa's own vast wealth: gold from Burkina Faso and Mali, cobalt from the Congo, oil from Nigeria and Angola, and agricultural surpluses from the Sahel. Economic advisors estimated that just 5% of Africa's annual resource revenue, about $45 billion, could fully back the first issuance of the new currency. A consortium of 5 African central banks signed on to create a continental monetary council, tasked with drafting legal frameworks and negotiating trade protocols that would allow the currency to circulate seamlessly across borders. What set ACI apart was not just its ambition, but its foundation. Traoré insisted that the initiative would be built from the bottom up. Village cooperatives, local credit unions, and farmers' associations would all have representation in the design process. "We cannot talk about sovereignty," he declared, "if the woman selling millet in a rural market does not feel this money belongs to her." The plan also included a digital version of the currency, integrated with Africa's expanding mobile payment networks, designed to reach the 350 million unbanked citizens currently excluded from the formal financial system. The response was electric. In Nigeria, students filled the streets chanting, "No more colonial money." In Ghana, parliamentarians from both ruling and opposition parties called for exploratory talks to join the initiative. South Africa, traditionally cautious in monetary experiments, announced it would send a delegation to Ouagadougou to learn and engage. African social media lit up with the hashtag One Africa, One Currency, and opinion polls across the continent showed unprecedented support. More than 72% of respondents said they believed Africa needed its own independent currency within the next decade. For many, Traoré's announcement was more than policy. It was a reclamation of dignity. Western commentators once dismissed African nations as banana republics, incapable of managing complex financial systems. Now, the same commentators debated whether ACI might become the most significant monetary experiment of the 21st century. Even veteran analysts admitted the geopolitical calculus had shifted. "The Afro-dollar is no longer guaranteed," one Wall Street strategist wrote. "The digital yuan has lost its first-mover advantage, and the CFA
Afro-dollar.
franc is now a ghost of its colonial past." But perhaps the most transformative effect of ACI was psychological. It sparked something deeper than economics, a continental awakening. For the first time, the idea of a shared African destiny felt tangible. It was not just politicians speaking of unity, but entrepreneurs envisioning regional trade free from currency barriers, teachers explaining monetary sovereignty in classrooms, and farmers discussing the value of their labor in African terms, rather than foreign exchange rates. Traoré's name began to circulate in editorials and forums as the Sankara of the digital age, a leader daring to finish the project his predecessor started, liberation not just from colonial armies, but from colonial economics. The global reaction was swift and telling. Washington urged caution, warning that such a currency could create instability if not carefully managed. Paris called it a threat to regional financial stability. Beijing offered technical cooperation, but with strings attached. Yet none of these responses could disguise a deeper truth. Africa, long seen as a passive participant in global finance, was now writing its own script. Still, the road ahead is steep. Questions remain about how to harmonize fiscal policies across 50-plus countries, how to guard against speculative attacks, and how to ensure the new currency serves people rather than elites. But these are the kinds of questions sovereign nations ask themselves, and that in itself marks a profound shift. As the sun set over Ouagadougou that historic day, Traoré left the stage with a simple message that echoed far beyond Burkina Faso's borders. We are not seeking permission. We are building the future. And so, a new chapter begins. One where Africa no longer debates which foreign currency to adopt, but whether the world is ready for a currency born from African soil, African hands, and African will. The question now is not if Africa can create its own money, but what happens to the global order when it does. Are we witnessing the birth of a financial revolution, or the opening shot of an even larger struggle for Africa's soul? In the end, this is no longer just a story about currency. It is a struggle for the soul of an entire continent. Because money, as Traoré reminds the world, is not simply a medium of exchange. It is a weapon. It is a chain. And, in the right hands, it is the master key to a nation's destiny. For decades, the CFA franc was used not merely to buy and sell, but to control, anchoring African economies to decisions made in Paris, limiting credit growth, dictating trade flows, and draining billions of dollars in reserves each year to European banks. Today, the proposed Afrodollar threatens to repeat the same story under a different flag, backed by $10 billion in Wall Street credit and 200 tons of U.S. gold, but still governed by institutions far from African soil. Standing before leaders of the West African Monetary Union, Ibrahim Traoré made the stakes unmistakable. Freedom cannot be granted. It cannot be bought. It must be forged, with our sweat, our labor, and our own intelligence. The choice facing Africa is now stark and historic. The first path is seductive. Embrace the Afrodollar and unlock new flows of credit, satellite-enabled banking, and technological integration. But beneath the promises of innovation lurks a familiar dependency, a system where monetary policy is still decided in Washington rather than Ouagadougou or Lagos. The second path is safer but suffocating. Return to the CFA, accept the illusion of stability, and remain tethered to the colonial past. And then there is the third path, the most difficult, yet the only one that leads forward. Build a currency by Africans, for Africans, backed by the continent's $2.3 trillion in natural resources, governed by its own central banks, and accountable to its own people. Each path represents more than an economic choice. It is a philosophical and civilizational decision about who writes Africa's next chapter. Will the continent continue to rent its financial sovereignty from foreign powers? Or will it finally seize the power to define the value of its labor, its land, and its future? Across campuses in Lagos and marketplaces in Bamako, across parliaments in Accra and street protests in Niamey, this debate has become deeply personal. Students carry banners reading, "No more masters of our money." Farmers discuss how an African currency could stabilize prices for their crops. Economists argue over models that tie currency value to cobalt, gold, and oil, assets Africa controls in abundance. The world is watching. Washington sees opportunity and risk. Paris sees its influence slipping. Beijing sees competition for its digital yuan strategy. But what matters most is what Africans see when they look in the mirror. A continent no longer asking for permission, but preparing to take its rightful place at the table. And Traoré's words echo beyond Burkina Faso's borders. We do not ask for permission to be free, we rise and claim it. This battle for monetary sovereignty is, at its core, a battle for memory and meaning. It is about breaking the idea, planted long ago, that Africa's destiny must always be written elsewhere. It is about transforming money from a tool of dependency into a declaration of dignity. And it is about proving that a continent long dismissed as a market can, in fact, become a maker of its own currency, its own policies, its own future. The stakes could not be higher. If Africa chooses wrongly, it risks trading one master for another, swapping colonial chains for digital ones. But if it chooses boldly, if it dares to build something truly its own, the implications will ripple far beyond finance. It will redefine trade, reshape alliances, and perhaps, for the first time in modern history, allow 1.4 billion people to speak with one monetary voice. The battle lines are drawn. The question now is not whether Africa can create its own money, but whether the world is ready for what happens when it does. Because once a people believe they can control their destiny without permission, no empire can ever rule them the same way again. So, what path will Africa choose? Dependency, nostalgia, or sovereignty? And when that choice is made, will the world's financial order ever look the same again? In the end, this story was never just about coins and paper. It was about power, because currency is not merely money. It is law, leverage, and legitimacy. It decides who writes the rules and who must obey them. The Afro-dollar, dressed in the language of liberation, forces Africa to ask itself a question no foreign capital can answer. Is this salvation, or just a new set of chains? Across the battlefield of global finance, three giants, the United States, France, and China, now circle the continent, each offering its own solution, each seeking to shape the future in its image. Yet, amid this clash of empires, one idea refuses to die, that Africa must stand on its own feet. Ibrahim Traoré's African Currency Initiative is more than an economic project. It is a declaration of intent, a refusal to trade one dependency for another. The spirit of Thomas Sankara breathes again. Africa is no longer content to be a backdrop, it is becoming a central player. The question now is not whether the world will allow it, but whether Africa will dare to seize it. And if it does, the global order may never look the same again.